Listen, everyone says they want success, they want change, they want freedom, they want a different life. But most people don't have a results problem. They have a consistency problem. You already know what you need to do. You know you should wake up earlier, eat healthier, take action, stop procrastinating, stop making excuses. You've told yourself 1,000 times, and yet you start, you stop, you commit, you back out. You build momentum, then you let it collapse, and the truth is, inconsistency kills more dreams than failure ever will. Because when you fail, at least you tried. But when you're inconsistent, you never even give yourself the chance to fail enough times to grow, to adapt, to win. Here's the real shift. Consistency is not about motivation. Motivation is a feeling. It comes and it goes. If you wait to feel motivated, you'll wait for the rest of your life. Consistency is about standards. It's about deciding, right now, that the old version of you, the one who shows up only when it's convenient, the one who negotiates with excuses, the one who keeps starting over again and again, that version is done. You need to step into a new identity, not someone who tries to be consistent, not someone who's working on it. No, from this moment on you are consistent, period. It's not something you dabble in. It's who you are. If you brush your teeth every morning without fail, if you shower without fail, if you breathe without fail, then why can't you show up for your goals the same way? The difference between people who succeed and people who stay stuck is not talent, not luck, not even knowledge. It's consistency. The best in the world are not always the most gifted. They're the ones who decided they would never quit. They would show up day after day, no matter how they felt, no matter what was happening around them. And because of that, the universe eventually had no choice but to reward them. Ask yourself, what would your life look like 1 year from now if you just stayed consistent with the small things, not the massive leap, not the overnight success story, but the daily actions you already know matter? What would happen if you stopped hitting pause every time life got messy? If you stopped waiting for perfect conditions? Consistency is not glamorous. It's not always exciting. But it's the compound effect of showing up that transforms everything. It's those little, repeated acts that stack up and build an unshakable foundation. You want confidence. Earn it by keeping the promises you make to yourself. You want freedom. Build it brick by brick, habit by habit, day after day. This is the moment where you stop lying to yourself. No more committing. No more I'll start tomorrow. No more sabotaging your own progress with old excuses. It's time to draw the line in the sand and say, this is who I am now. I am consistent. I follow through. I finish what I start. I keep going until the results show up. Because if you truly commit, if you decide once, and for all that consistency is your new identity, then nothing and no one can stop you. You'll fail forward, you'll adapt, you'll grow, and eventually you'll break through. It's time to be consistent once and for all, not someday, not when you feel ready, now. Consistency is not about motivation, it's about standards. Motivation feels good, but it's fleeting. It comes in bursts of energy that can push you for a day, maybe a week, but the moment life gets difficult, the moment distractions show up, that motivation evaporates. You've felt it before. You get excited, you get inspired, you say, this is it, I'm changing my life. And for a little while, you take action, but then the old patterns creep back, and you stop. Not because you didn't want it badly enough, but because you were relying on motivation. If your foundation is motivation, your foundation is weak. Standards are different. Standards are not about how you feel. They are about what you demand from yourself regardless of how you feel. When you raise your standards, you no longer ask, do I feel like it today? The question disappears. It's not optional. It becomes who you are. Think about the non-negotiables in your life. You don't wake up in the morning and wonder if you should brush your teeth. You don't debate if you should eat. These are built-in standards. You don't need motivation for them. You just do them because that's your baseline of living. Now imagine if you treated your goals, your health, your business, your relationships the same way. Imagine if consistency wasn't something you had to psych yourself up for, but simply a standard you lived by. That's the difference between people who talk about changing their lives and people who actually do. Standards create identity, and identity drives behavior. When you decide your standard is to show up every single day no matter what, that becomes the floor, not the ceiling. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You stop allowing your feelings to dictate your future. Standards demand that you step up, even when you don't feel ready, even when you don't feel inspired, even when it's inconvenient. Because the truth is, your feelings are temporary, but your standards are permanent. People who achieve great things aren't superhuman. They don't wake up every day overflowing with motivation. What they have are unshakable standards. They've decided who they are, and they act in alignment with that decision over and over again until results show up. They don't rely on willpower. They rely on identity. And when you raise your standards, you'll find that the actions that once felt impossible become natural. You won't have to force yourself to take action because the standard itself pulls you forward. Think about the times in your life when you've demanded more from yourself. Maybe it was in school, maybe at work, maybe in a sport, maybe when everything was on the line and you said, "I will not let myself fail." In those moments, you weren't motivated. You were committed. That commitment came from a higher standard. That's the place you must live from if you want lasting results. You cannot keep treating consistency as a choice or a bonus or something you'll do when you feel like it. You have to make it your minimum expectation. You must set a line that says, anything less than this is unacceptable for me. That's the shift from motivation to standards. One fades, the other transforms you. And once you've tasted what life feels like when you live by higher standards, you will never want to go back. Inconsistency destroys more dreams than failure ever will. People are so afraid of failing that they never realize the real danger isn't falling down. It's never staying on the path long enough to see what's possible. Failure, in many ways, is part of the process. It teaches you, it shapes you, it gives you feedback. When you fail, you still have momentum, you still have the opportunity to learn and adjust, you still move forward. But when you're inconsistent, you're stuck in a cycle of starting over again and again. You take a few steps, you stop. You build some momentum, you stop. You get excited, you stop. And every time you stop, you kill the progress you've built. You weaken your belief in yourself, and you rob yourself of the compound effect that only consistency can create. Think about it. The people who succeed in anything aren't necessarily the smartest, the most talented, or the most connected. They're simply the ones who refuse to stop showing up. They're the ones who keep putting one brick on top of another, day after day, even when it feels like nothing is happening. They know that results don't come instantly, but they trust the process because they're consistent. On the other hand, the ones who dabble, who show up only when it's convenient, who get excited and then disappear, never experience the breakthroughs they dream about. Not because they can't, but because they never stick around long enough for the results to compound. Inconsistency is the silent killer of potential. It whispers excuses. It makes you believe that skipping one day doesn't matter, that you'll pick it up tomorrow, that missing this one commitment won't affect anything. But the truth is, every time you break consistency, you weaken the muscle of discipline. You train your mind to accept excuses. You tell yourself it's okay to stop. And the more times you repeat that pattern, the harder it becomes to build momentum again. You start to associate your goals with struggle instead of progress. You begin to doubt whether you're capable, not because you aren't capable, but because you haven't allowed yourself to stay in the game long enough to prove that you are. Failure, on the other hand, is an ally. When you fail, it means you tried. It means you showed up. It means you pushed yourself beyond your comfort zone. Failure is a lesson. It gives you data. It points you toward what doesn't work so you can discover what does. Inconsistency robs you of that gift. It's like planting a seed and digging it up every few days to see if it's growing. You destroy the process before the roots can ever take hold. You'll never see the fruit of your effort because you keep uprooting yourself before the harvest arrives. Look at any area of life: fitness, relationships, business, personal growth. Consistency is the price of admission. You don't get healthy by going to the gym once in a while. You don't build trust in a relationship by showing up only when you feel like it. You don't create a business by working hard for a month and then disappearing for 3. Success demands consistency, and the tragedy is, most people have the ability, most people have the tools, most people even know what to do, but they sabotage themselves with inconsistency. They keep restarting the race, wondering why they're always at the beginning, instead of realizing that staying in motion is what would carry them to the finish line. The truth is, inconsistency creates a life of frustration because deep down you know you're capable of more, but your actions don't reflect it. You see glimpses of what's possible, you taste progress, but you never lock it in. You feel the pain of stopping and starting, and it erodes your confidence. It's not failure that makes people give up on their dreams. It's the fatigue of inconsistency. It's the disappointment of knowing that you never gave yourself fully to the process, that you kept pulling back right when the breakthrough was close. And the only way to break free is to recognize that consistency isn't a sometimes thing, it's an always thing. Identity drives behavior. Decide that consistency is who you are. Every action you take is a reflection of how you see yourself. If you believe you're someone who struggles, who quits, who can't stay consistent, your actions will always align with that belief. You'll find yourself living down to the identity you've accepted. But when you shift your identity, when you decide deep within yourself that you are consistent, you are disciplined, you are committed, your behavior begins to align with that new standard. You no longer have to rely on willpower or bursts of motivation, because your actions naturally flow from who you believe you are. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because their identity hasn't caught up with their goals. They try to act like someone they don't yet believe themselves to be. They say, "I want to be fit." But deep down they still identify as someone who's lazy or undisciplined. They say, "I want to be successful," but inside they still carry the belief that they're not capable or not worthy. The result is self-sabotage. They start strong, but the old identity pulls them back because identity always wins. Your subconscious will fight to stay consistent with who you believe you are, even if it means destroying your progress. That's why changing your identity is the key to lasting consistency. When you decide that you are consistent, you stop asking questions like, "Should I do this today?" or "Do I feel like it right now?" Those questions disappear because they don't fit your identity anymore. If you identify as an athlete, you train whether you feel like it or not. If you identify as a leader, you show up whether you feel ready or not. If you identify as someone who is consistent, you act in alignment with that truth every single day. Your behavior becomes automatic because it matches who you are. Think about habits you already have that you don't negotiate with. You don't question if you're going to brush your teeth. You don't debate whether you'll put on clothes before leaving the house. You don't deliberate about eating each day. Why? Because these are tied to your identity. They're just part of who you are. Imagine if showing up for your goals, being consistent with your commitments, was as natural as breathing. That shift happens when you decide, "This is me. This is who I am." Identity is powerful because it bypasses the constant negotiation with yourself. When your identity is strong, You don't wrestle with excuses. You don't spend energy convincing yourself to take action. You just act. The decision has already been made. You live in alignment with your chosen standard. And the more you reinforce that identity with action, the stronger it becomes. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen the belief that you are consistent. Every time you follow through, even in small ways, you reinforce the identity. Over time, it stops being something you're working on and becomes simply who you are. The danger is when people lock themselves into a negative identity. I'm just not disciplined. I always quit. I'm bad at sticking with things. Those statements become self-fulfilling prophecies. Your mind is designed to make your identity real. So if you say those things enough, your brain will find ways to prove them true. That's why you must be ruthless about the language you use with yourself. The moment you catch yourself repeating an old, limiting identity, you replace it with the one you choose to live by. You declare it. You own it. You act in alignment with it, even if at first it feels uncomfortable. Because at the start, identity shift is uncomfortable. It feels like you're lying to yourself when you say, I am consistent, while your past shows evidence of inconsistency. But the truth is, identity is not about the past, it's about the present decision. The moment you choose a new identity and begin to act on it, you've already begun rewriting the story. Your past doesn't define you. What defines you is what you decide now and what you repeatedly do moving forward. When you make identity your focus, everything else becomes easier. You no longer chase motivation. You no longer fight with yourself every day to stay on track. You no longer rely on external circumstances to keep you going. You simply live as the person you've decided to be. And when consistency becomes part of your identity, success stops being a distant possibility and starts becoming inevitable. Success is built on small, repeated actions, not occasional effort. Too many people chase the big leap, the breakthrough moment, the dramatic transformation. They think success is about doing something massive once in a while, but that's not how real progress works. Real success comes from the quiet, often boring repetition of small actions done day after day. It's not the giant leap forward that changes your life. It's the steady footsteps you take consistently over time. Those small actions may feel insignificant in the moment, but they stack, they compound, and eventually they build a foundation that is unshakable. Think of a drop of water falling on a rock. One drop means nothing. 10 drops mean nothing. But when those drops keep falling, day after day, over time, they carve through stone. That is the power of repetition. It doesn't look powerful at first, but it transforms everything. The same is true in your life. Going to the gym one time doesn't matter. Reading one book doesn't matter. Making one sales call doesn't matter. But doing those things over and over again consistently is what changes your body, your mind, your career, your future. The problem is, people underestimate the power of small actions and overestimate the impact of occasional effort. They wait until they feel inspired, then go all in for a short burst, and when the excitement fades, they stop. They think that if they can just put in one huge effort, they'll finally change. But the body doesn't get strong from one workout. The mind doesn't get sharp from one book. A business doesn't grow from one inspired week of hustle. These things grow from the accumulation of small choices, small disciplines, repeated without fail. When you look at people who achieve extraordinary results, it's easy to assume they must have done something extraordinary. But if you study their lives closely, you'll find that what separates them is not some one-time act of greatness, but the relentless repetition of small, seemingly ordinary behaviors. They do the fundamentals over and over again, long after the excitement has worn off. They master the basics until the basics create mastery. The truth is, Success hides in the daily choices that most people ignore because they don't look impressive. Skipping the junk food today doesn't change your health overnight, but doing it consistently will. Writing one page today doesn't make you an author, but writing one page a day for a year creates a book. Saving a small amount of money today doesn't make you wealthy, but doing it every month for years can change your financial life. Small actions are easy to do, but they're also easy not to do, and that's where most people lose the game. They dismiss the little things because they don't see immediate results, not realizing those little things are exactly what build lasting change. Occasional effort feels exciting. It gives you a burst of pride, but it doesn't last. It doesn't create momentum because it doesn't have continuity. Success doesn't reward intensity alone, it rewards consistency. Think of a fire. You can throw a huge log on once in a while, but if you don't feed it regularly, the fire dies. Success is the same way. It's better to keep feeding the fire with small, steady fuel than to throw in a giant log and then walk away. Small, repeated actions are also powerful because they change how you see yourself. Every time you follow through on something small, you strengthen your identity as someone who shows up, as someone who honors commitments, as someone who does what they said they would do. Over time, that identity becomes unshakable. You begin to trust yourself at a deeper level, and that trust fuels even greater action. Success is not built in the moments when everyone is watching. It's built in the quiet repetitions when no one is there to applaud you. If you want to change your life, stop chasing occasional intensity and start honoring small consistency. Don't wait for the big leap. Don't wait for the massive breakthrough. Build it brick by brick, action by action, day after day. The real magic is not in doing something huge once. It's in doing something small 1,000 times until it creates something huge. Confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself every single day. Most people think confidence is something you're born with, a natural trait that some people just have and others don't. But the truth is, confidence is built. It's not magic, it's not luck, it's not even talent. It's the byproduct of trust, and trust is created by one simple thing, doing what you said you were going to do. Every time you set a goal, make a commitment, or tell yourself you'll take action, and then you actually follow through, you build an inner strength that no one can take from you. Confidence is not about talking yourself into believing you're capable. It's about proving to yourself, through consistent action, that you are. Think about how trust works in any relationship. If someone you know makes promises but never keeps them, your trust in them disappears. It doesn't matter how much they talk. You don't believe them because their actions don't match their words. Now think about the relationship you have with yourself. Every time you set an intention but don't follow through, you weaken that trust. You tell yourself one thing, but you do another, and your confidence erodes. On the other hand, every time you keep a promise to yourself, even a small one, you strengthen that trust. You show yourself evidence that you can rely on you. And that's what confidence really is. Confidence isn't about pretending. It's not about looking in the mirror and chanting affirmations while doing nothing to back them up. It's not about faking it until you make it. Real confidence comes from evidence. It comes from action. It comes from a track record of showing up for yourself. The moment you start keeping the promises you make to yourself, you start to believe in your own word. And when you believe in your own word, you carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You approach challenges differently because deep down you know you can trust yourself to figure it out. The mistake many people make is waiting for confidence before they take action. They think, once I feel more confident, I'll go after my goals. Once I have confidence, I'll put myself out there. But it doesn't work that way. Confidence isn't the prerequisite for action, it's the result of action. You don't get confidence by waiting. You get it by doing the uncomfortable things, following through on them, and stacking proof that you're capable. Every time you act despite fear or doubt, you collect another piece of evidence that says, I can trust myself. Even the smallest commitments matter. If you promise yourself you'll wake up at a certain time and you actually do it, that's a deposit into your confidence account. If you promise yourself you'll go to the gym and you follow through, that's another deposit. If you promise yourself you'll spend 30 minutes on your project and you honor that, that's another. These deposits add up. Over time, your confidence grows not because you told yourself you're confident, but because you've proven it to yourself through consistent action. But the reverse is also true. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you withdraw from that account. You tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. You promise, I'll eat healthy, and then you don't. You say, I'll stop procrastinating, but you keep putting things off. Each broken promise chips away at your self-belief. It doesn't matter how much you want confidence in those moments, it won't come, because confidence can't be built on broken foundations. That's why the fastest way to build confidence is to shrink the gap between your words and your actions. Don't make massive promises you know you won't keep. Start with small ones you can keep consistently. Build the habit of following through. Create momentum with little wins. As you stack those wins, you'll be able to take on bigger promises and follow through on those too. Confidence grows in layers, one kept promise at a time. Confidence is freedom. When you truly trust yourself, you stop hesitating. You stop guessing. You stop waiting for someone else to validate you. You act because you know you'll show up. You pursue opportunities because you trust your ability to handle them. You push through fear because you know fear doesn't last, but your commitment does. And the foundation of all of it is the daily practice of honoring your word to yourself.